for you. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Yeah, this for my dogs from the east to the west side. Rockin' brown and orange with me, baby. Let's ride. Represent the land, let them know. Tell them, here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Yeah, here we go.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Here We Go Brownies podcast. I'm Allie Heisong, coming to you live from Sneads Ferry, North Carolina. Joined with me, as always, out in beautiful Cleveland, Ohio. We've got Dustin at the Barley House tonight. Dustin, how you doing?
Allie, as pure, true Cleveland weather, we set a record high in Cleveland yesterday at 70 degrees, and it's now 25 degrees outside.
Oh, yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right.
You want to talk about some crazy weather. Northeast Ohio will definitely shock you into enjoying weather and shock you right back in and remind you it's still February. But
Yeah.
Allie, it's been great. We'll get into it. Some crazy stuff in Cleveland sports have been happening in the last few days, but we'll get into that. But take it away, Allie.
Yeah, take it away. First and foremost, Dustin, I wanna kick it over to you. You are at the Barley House. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, guys, if you haven't been to the Barley House down here on West 6, you've got to make it a must-have when you're in Cleveland. Come down and enjoy the great food, the great people. And March, there's a thing called St. Patty's Day. It's huge here in Cleveland because of the Irish community, and they really do a huge pub crawl during St. Patty's Day on that Saturday, March 16th. Unfortunately, Allie, I will not be able to partake in that because we'll be coming back from our cruise, the Browns fan cruise. But come down to the Barley House. It's great during football season and not football season. Come down and enjoy. And hey, and if you're in Cleveland tonight, come down. I got some special prizes for you guys, including a gift card to the Barley House if you come in and say hello.
Yeah, there you go. Some news out of Berea, and we talked about this a little bit last week, and how it's going to be imperative for the Cleveland Browns front office to really kind of navigate their financial situation, and that of Denzel Ward. His contract was restructured. I just lost my mouse here, so I'm connected to a couple monitors, so that's really weird. But they restructured Denzel Ward's contract, Dustin. So I just want to talk about that and the flexibility and kind of team dynamic, team first approach that Denzel Ward has kind of always had, in wanting to continue to be a Cleveland Brown. Because I mean, if we talk about, open and honestly, that he was a potential, trade candidate over the past couple of years. So I just kind of want to talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, what did we say? About 11 million in cap space, roughly, is what we ended up saving. I think with the new salary cap adjustment, we were 6 million over the cap. I mean, I think these numbers are pretty rough, but 6 million over the cap. And with this now, it puts us 6 million under the cap. I don't think Andrew Berry is done. I think this is the first of multiple moves to manipulate that salary cap that we know Andrew Berry does so well. I actually think the Browns are going to be aggressive in free agency, and I think this is one of those first kind of points of interest that's come out of Berea to show that. And I think you'll see probably a Nick Chubb adjustment on a contract. You may see something restructured from Deshaun Watson to push that into a couple years out, so it's not so such a hit to this season. But I think we're going to see probably 3, 4, 5 players have something restructured in this offseason to make the Browns more cap friendly going into March 16th, something like that, when free agency starts. So with that said, that's kind of the whole plan with Andrew Berry, and we know the last couple of years that's kind of been his MO. So
just kind of put it into perspective here. In 2022, signed a 5-year extension with the Browns. He had a guaranteed salary of $15.324 million. So with the restructuring, it does clear over 11 million in cap space. So I think that's interesting. It was good to get some actual Browns news. As I woke up this morning. So I think that Browns are going to have to get creative. I mean, you have to make room for the Deshaun Watson contract. I mean, to put it bluntly, and I agree with you. I think that there is going to be some restructuring done. There's going to be some potential movement that's done because you do have to get creative in that regard. But Andrew Berry has proven that he's capable of doing that.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, let's actually first, Dustin, why don't you tell our listeners about the Hartville Flea Market and
Yeah, marketplace.
who's going to be there upcoming, because we're going to bring him on as our next guest.
Yeah, Allie, this weekend, the wonderful Nick Chubb that everybody loves from the Cleveland Browns will be there, and Browns legend Thom Darden will be there this Saturday. So come down and enjoy both of those Browns former alumni and Browns great. Nick Chubb will be down there. We love the Hartville Marketplace because they have so many things you can do inside, shopping. They have the hardware store next door, which, by the way, Allie, I went in and drove by. There were cars parked for a half mile to this tool sale, of all things, a tool sale, their annual tool sale. And I was like, okay, this must be a big deal. There was a lot of people, but it'll be crazy again this weekend with having those Browns alumni and current Browns players down there. So with that, Allie, let's introduce.
Well, let's
Thom
go ahead and
Darden.
bring him on. Let's bring on Browns legend Thom Darden to the program. Thom, how are you?
Good evening, Allie and Justin. I'm doing well. How about you guys?
You're doing good. We are doing great. Thanks so much for taking the time. It's nice to be able to sit down with you, talk a little Browns football, get your perspective.
Well, I tell you what, I'm always interested in talking about the Browns. Since I grew up around Cleveland area, 60 miles, I guess, west of Cleveland.
Yes,
and Browns have always been my team, and I had the fortunate situation of playing with the Browns for a few years. And probably one of the most memorable teams got a chance to play on that Cardiac Kids team.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, I just want to ask you, there was a big turnaround in this defense this year, and it was a memorable turnaround. You used the word memorable, and it just brought me right here. And the way that this team was kind of able to kind of shift gears from 2 years ago now, just being a defense filled with so many holes, to being one of the best in the league. I just want to get your thoughts on that change and that transition into being the best defense in the NFL.
Well, I think, first of all, they had a leader, Coach Schwartz. He is obviously known for his defensive prowess. For quite some years, he was known as a pretty good defensive mind. Secondly, they got some good corners. You cannot play in this league today without people that can cover. And they got pretty decent corners. Obviously, they got a guy up in front and nobody can block, or they have a difficult time blocking. That always helps. Get a pass rush. They got pretty decent linebackers that seem to be able to cover as well, which is also difficult because linebackers sometimes they don't have the foot speed to be able to get backs out of the backfield or help out with wide receivers or tight ends. So, they've got just about everything that I've seen strength-wise across the board. Defensive line, linebackers, cornerbacks, safeties that can tackle, safeties that can play the ball downfield. So I'm impressed with this defense.
Thom, here's a question that I have for you that has always impressed me with you about you personally. To this day, you are the interception leader for the Cleveland Browns. To think about that we're in a pass-happy league today, right? Everything is pass. And the fact that you still hold that record today, I think, is pretty remarkable and amazing in itself. But let's talk about those Cardiac Kids. Let's go back in time and to what players see today and how the game has changed and what you saw then and what made you so successful intercepting the ball, and how you would read those offenses to put yourself in a position to be able to get as many interceptions as you did in your career with the Cleveland Browns.
Well, thank you, Justin. That's pretty observant of you. My thing was always, and fortunately for me, I had coaches who allowed me to play as much as possible as a free safety, meaning I could get in the middle of the field and watch the quarterback, read the quarterback, know if two receivers were on one side, what both of those, the outside guy and the inside guy, was doing, knowing when they would cross my face, the guy on the opposite side generally would run to the post. So you get a sense of the offensive ability to attack you. Back then we had a short side and a wide side, and then they moved the divisions. yard lines, markers inside. So they both had the same amount of space on each side. So all that to say, the offense would dictate to you where they were going with the ball. Generally, you could tell by the way they ran their offense, especially Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, the teams that we played often. You had a feeling for where they would try to attack you and where their best receivers were, what the best routes for those receivers. One of the things I remember is I could never catch Isaac Curtis. He always seemed to be running past me most of the time, but I was fortunate enough to be able to play. And plus, I probably should throw this in. From what I'm seeing today, the ball doesn't stay up in the air as long as it used to stay up in the air. Mm-hmm. The quarterbacks have rifle arms today. Most of them. There's still some guys that can't throw it with as much velocity. Right. So the ball, and plus, if you notice, they don't throw the ball as long as they used to. Teams when we played, like Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, they averaged 14, 15 yards downfield before they would throw the ball. You see the ball being thrown if it's crossing the line of scrimmage, 3, 4, 5 yards, 6, 7, 8 yards downfield. You don't see 15 yards anymore. So I think that's one of the reasons. The longer you got to throw the ball, the more time I have to get to it. So from my perspective, the ball's out of their hands quicker. The velocity is much quicker and faster. They don't throw the ball down the field as much as often, 15 yards. So a lot of times guys don't have an opportunity to intercept passes.
And I think with that, and obviously you hold the record, right? So you were in the right place at the right time in a lot of those instances, and having the wherewithal of being able to read an offense and knowing where the ball is going to go and being just a very smart defensive player. With that, was there another player that kind of was a mentor to you in any way that got you? It was maybe that coach on the field that kind of got everybody lined up, or would you say that was you?
Well, for the first 2 years on the team, so that would be 72 and 73. 74 was when I first moved to free safety from strong safety. Mm-hmm. I had guys like Clarence Scott, Ben Davis that were cornerbacks. I had Walt Sumner. Walt Sumner was a strong safety, and he really was probably the most influential in helping me because he was also playing same position I was playing. But to be honest with you, it really came from the coaches. I had some really good secondary coaches over my time in Cleveland that taught me first how to review film and what to look for against each offense that we were playing, find the nuances that they were looking at, and I'm sure it still holds true today. All offenses have what they call, routines that they feel comfortable with. So in certain situations, if it's 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 4, whatever, and they come out in a certain formation, 9 times out of 10 where the ball's going. So between the offense coming out in formation, between where it is on the field, down in distance, you can narrow it down to where the ball might go.
Do you think, or no, go ahead, Dustin, go ahead.
Yeah, as I say, we've had Ben Davis on a two-part question, and we talk about this all the time. We've had Hanford on, Felix and those guys on the show before, a lot of your former players. Is there anybody that you still kind of, it's interesting, I call it a Browns brotherhood. You guys, you stay together, you hang out, you have dinners, you and your wives hang out. Is there somebody that to this day you kind of are close to still? And then secondly, my question is there a particular player that just gave you fits when you'd go up against them in the National Football League, keep you up at night going, man, damn it, I got to go against that guy tomorrow? And it made you kind of coach yourself up a little bit more and just make you do extra homework for that week, knowing that, man, when we face those guys and that quarterback, it's going to be a day.
Well, there's no doubt that Isaac Curtis was always a problem for us. He had so much speed. He just had track speed. So we were always fearful of Isaac Curtis. We also had Lynn Swan and John Stallworth from Pittsburgh. They give you fits. You also had Biletnikoff with the Raiders, and he always had, whether it was Cliff Branch or someone else as a speedster on the other side of him. I mean, I could go down the list. In Denver, I'm trying to remember who you had in Denver. We had a couple of speedsters out in Denver. Houston. How could I forget Houston? Kenny Burrow. And Kenny Burrow was like 6'4", but his strides took up, I think he took 5 yards in 2 steps. It's ridiculous. Right? How you keep up with that? Because I'm trying to catch up with him, and I'm chopping my feet, or he's already down the field. So during that time when the AFC Central Division was one of the best divisions in football, just like the AFC North is today, we had some receivers that could cause you some nightmares if you didn't learn how to cover and protect them.
Oh, yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about team building. During that time, the Cardiac Kids, obviously known for just kind of that. I mean, Dustin, you kind of hit the nail on the head too. Just that Browns brotherhood, that close, tight knit group of players. I just kind of want to ask, like, your philosophy on how do you build that chemistry, whether it's on the field, off the field. How do you get that team dynamic to what you guys were?
That's a good question. And to me, it's probably the most important facet as you build a team. And I looked at this team this year. Obviously, I'm not close to the team. I'm not in the locker room. But there's got to be a pretty good locker room with this team. Mm-hmm. Guys act like they like each other. They want the best for each other. They protect each other. That's what you want. You want guys who would fall on the sword for the other guy. Yeah. And not to say that we had, because that year at the of the Cardiac Kids, there was such good camaraderie amongst the guys. We partied together. We went to dinner together. We were around each other a lot. And you got to have that in order for that to permeate to the field. So I believe the Browns are on their way to having that kind of situation.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's evident on the field. And, it's such a young group of guys too, Thom, that they've had to step up in big roles. A couple of years ago, they go out and they sign safety John Johnson, who I think we all thought was going to, be a similar player to you in a way. And that didn't work out. But then we see young guys like Ronnie Hickman, for example, an undrafted free agent, D'Anthony Bell, undrafted free agent, safeties that have stepped up into a huge role. So I guess my question to you is, to these younger guys, maybe the undrafted guys, just it's a younger group of guys, what would be your advice to, just for a successful NFL career, but also as a good teammate?
Probably the first thing I think of is your willingness to listen. A lot of times guys come from big programs like Michigan, Ohio State, some of the other big programs, and they're pretty good, but they have a better sense of, I don't know if it's better, but they have a sense of who they are that sometimes is a little less favorable in a crowd or in the locker room. And you got to really give up your ego when you come into the league, especially because even if you think you are the best in the world, drafted as high as you can be drafted, there's a major difference between college football and professional football. Yeah. And your willingness to receive information, take in information, and dialogue with someone who is either in your position or someone on the defense, if you're on defense, or on the offense, that is critical. Because if you come in and you're standoffish, or you think you know what you're doing, it hurts the team. It hurts the team. And that's really, in my opinion, what today's world is all about in sports, athletics all over the place, team athletics. Yeah. The ability to find a cohesive group of guys who would die for each other.
Yeah.
And when you have that, you're hard to beat because everybody's going to learn their defense. Everybody's going to learn their offense. Now, you must also be wise enough or inquisitive enough to understand that there's nuances to each position. Like at free safety, you had to understand that if, I had two guys on one side and there was one guy on the back, and those two guys crossed my face, generally that guy on this side is going to try to run behind me. So rather than jump, and the quarterback's looking at those two guys, and all of a sudden he turns his head, is going to throw the deep ball to the guy on the one side. I better be back there to be able to protect the ball. And you learn those types of things by practicing, by watching film, by sharing what you see from the film with guys on the practice field, talking like me, safety to corner, so that we know where your strengths are, who is this guy you got to cover, where his strengths are. What does he like to run the post deep? Does he like to run the post short? I mean, those are the types of things that make a difference in being successful and not being successful.
Tom, I was just going to just double down on something you said there. You talk about a season, the ebbs and flows of a season, and having that cohesiveness in the locker room. And what I think, and Ali, you can attest to that, this season, the Browns really were thrown everything, 5 quarterbacks, all the different things that this team had to go through, injuries. And even when they were at their lowest low or their highest highs, it seemed like this team galvanized around each other, picked each other up. And because of that, you bring up a good point. That has to be a pretty close-knit locker room because, as you would say, some of these guys could have thrown in the towel and said, well, we can't do this. This is impossible. But they were such a tight-knit group. They rallied around that and said, no, we won't be denied. And they made the playoffs. And I think the Browns got way more out of this football team than most teams would by even making the playoffs based on what happened to them and the injuries and everything that happened in this season alone.
I think you're spot on. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs. But the resolve that they showed as, especially, people from the outside. People from the outside will talk, sportscasters, announcers, ESPN, whatever you want to talk about. They always have negativity in mind, in my opinion.
Right.
Those guys didn't listen to any of that. And, man, they hung in there. But, see, also, if I'm a defensive back, if I was sitting with Myles Garrett in front of me, I'd be the happiest guy in the National Football League. I'd probably intercept 30 passes if Myles Garrett was rushing the passer if I was playing. I mean, that guy, they put 2-3 people on this guy, and they still can't block him, right? So I just mentioned him, but there are other guys, obviously, who played very well this year. Their linebacking core was a lot better than I thought they would be. Mm-hmm. The secondary they had just had a good season. So I'm really excited. After I went to my last Super Bowl in California, and now you're going to test my memory, in '82, I think it was, I said I would never go to another Super Bowl unless the Browns were in it. I might get that chance.
Well, you ready for this? So this is going to make you laugh, Tom. But Eric Metcalf had that same thought process, okay? And he said, I'll go to a party, I'll go to festivities in the city, but I'm not going to go to the Super Bowl. And a couple years ago, a guy by the name Jim Brown asked if him and Bernie Kosar would accompany him to the Super Bowl. And he goes, I sure in the hell ain't saying no to Jim Brown. So he said he had to break that, but he goes, from now on, I'm not going to any more Super Bowls. But that was his same mentality. I'm not going to go watch the Super Bowl until my team gets in there. So it's in the blood, right? We don't want to go watch a game in person until we're in it. And honestly, I just want to get to one at this point. If we can get to one, I think we'll kind of be like the '85 Bears. We'll know how important it is, and we'll win the thing. That's my true feeling. So.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So here's a question here. Here in the comments. Do you guys think that this defense will carry into 2024? James is of the belief that they'll be even scarier, bigger, better, faster, stronger with JOK, along with Miles. Do you think that this can translate into next year? I agree with James. I think so. I think that they've set the foundation. They have all of the right pieces, the parts, the leader to get them there. But Thom, I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Man, let me just say this. 1972, I came into the league as a rookie, and we went 10-4, went to the playoffs. My first year, played the Miami Dolphins down in Miami, had them beat, and we end up losing the game. They go on to be the only undefeated team in the history of the National Football League. But I come back off that flight saying, okay, I'm ready. We're going to go to the playoffs every year. We're going to be in the playoffs all the time. It doesn't happen that way. There is something about the just what they had this year, the closeness, the measure that you can't really put a number on it.
Yeah.
You may not have that same thing this year. And it's not because the guys aren't as good. And it's not because they can't play their positions or they're not better than the opponent. It's just something about the magic. Just like the Cardiac Kids. We went into every game. We weren't supposed to be beating these teams. We weren't, we had Brian Syke, who they thought was, not good enough to even be on the team at one point. And this guy was throwing the ball all over the place. We had people that were playing above what most critics would say was their level of play. There's something that's intangible about the camaraderie and about the season itself. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to jump on the line and say that they are going to go as far this year. We expect them to because they physically have the capability. We expect them to because they've shown that they're a great team. I want to see, what happens in practice. I want to see what happens as they go through exhibition season. I want to see who gets hurt. But that's always the equalizer. Who gets hurt?
Yeah.
So that when we start the season, everybody's intact. Everybody's, got their mind in the right spot and they're playing their butts off. This team should go a long way.
So Thom, we'll get you out of here on this. First and foremost, thanks for coming down to Hartville this weekend. I know the fans will be excited to see you. When I mentioned that you were going to be on the show tonight, they were super excited. They're like, oh my gosh, I loved watching Thom Darden as a teenager. There's a lot of comments that people are making here. So I know they're going to be excited. We're giving away a bunch of meet and greets. We're giving away a bunch of meet and greets for people to come see you down there in Signature. So I know they're going to be excited about that as we give those away. There it is. Thom Darden was a team when he played for the Browns. Great to watch him.
Well, Dustin, thank you very much. Thank you, Allie. It's a pleasure with both you guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Go Browns.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.
Go Browns. All right, that is Browns legend Thom Darden. Look, I love being able to sit down with former players and understand their thought process, not only just because of their time playing, but the way that they view this current team as well. I think it's just absolutely invaluable. So that was a great conversation. That was great.
I also think we pull nuggets out that we don't get sometimes, and things that we did, stories that we get to tell. I love interviewing the former players like the Ben Davises of the world and these guys, and they really are a brotherhood. Like, they talk to each other, they see how they're, check in on them, how you doing and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It would be interesting at some point. I'd love to ask Thom, does he come, he mentioned, I want to see them practice. It'd be interesting to see if he comes out and watches some of the training camps, right? And watches these guys, because he's out in Iowa. If he comes over and watches these guys from time to time in training camp to see kind of, because we talk about this as the eyeball test, right? Former players, coaches. Well, let me see him on the field. Let me see him in practice. You always hear that.
And then we do. Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's the eyeball test is like, okay, that's the real deal. Like right now it's in front of me.
Right.
I see the speed, I see the quickness, I see the instincts. You see all that because it's live and you can't duplicate live play or
Right.
live
Nope.
practice. So
Nope, you can't. Guys, I don't know about you, but I like saving money, so that's why I would do all of my shopping at the Cleveland Furniture Company. Whether it's new recliner, couch, kitchen table, bed, whatever you need, they've got it. So head on over to the Cleveland Furniture Company. They can save you money because they buy in bulk direct from the factories. So that interview with Thom Darden was brought to you from the couch.
From the Couch is brought to you by the Cleveland Furniture Company.
Just another point here that I want to run through real quick, Dustin, before we bring on David for the medical minute, is the NFLPA's grades came out today. So I don't know if you got a chance to see that. So I do want to run through the Browns grades, and I will.
now,
What's
full
your thought?
disclosure, I did not see them, but I
Did not. Okay.
But based on Twitter, they were like the Browns should be not happy is what I
Well,
said. Yeah.
yes and no. So
Yeah.
treatment of facilities, D-, food and cafeteria, C+, nutritionist, dietitian, C+, locker room, D+, training room, C+, training staff, B-, weight room, D, strength coaches, B+, team travel, D, head coach, B-, and ownership, B. Kevin Stefanski did come out today and say that one of the weaknesses there, which was a weight room, that was a D, they will be getting a new weight room. So that is a positive thing off of that. So it's always just so interesting for me to see how the players voting and other things around the league. For example, the Chiefs owner was graded an F. It was very poor. They just won the Super Bowl. So, I think the top 3 coaches that got the most love was Andy Reid, Dan Campbell, and surprisingly, I did not expect this, Kevin O'Connell of the Minnesota Vikings. So it's cool I just like to see how these things go and see the perspective of the voters.
Well,
I think it's really unique.
I do think that's funny that the owner of the Chiefs got an F. Like it's like that just doesn't. I mean, that doesn't correlate. Well, I think he's doing really well and he's building a dynasty. I don't know how you would give that a failing grade, but anyway, I digress.
It is what it is. And Kevin Stefanski, who just won Coach of the Year, was given a B-. So, we're not in those conversations. So it's interesting to see those come out. All right, we are going to go ahead and bring David on for the medical minute. This is brought to you by our friends over at Lorello.
My name's Kim Lorello, and my husband and I, Larry, started Lorello Vineyards over 21 years ago. We're a small cantina nestled in the Grand River Valley in Geneva, Ohio. Our winery consists of 2 beautiful tasting rooms, and we have 2 rooms that can transform into party rooms inside. Our menu here at Lorello's is home cooking. We have wood-fired Tuscan pizzas, paninis, salads, and several appetizers. We have award-winning wines that have won medals internationally, nationally, and locally. In the summer and springtime, we have a beautiful outdoor patio that also we have live entertainment. We also have entertainment sporadically through the entire year inside during our cool fall and winter months. Additionally, outside in the summer, we have a beautiful tent that can house several guests for a private function. We hope to see you soon, and if you want any more information on Lorello Vineyards, you can go to our website at www.lorellovineyards.com. We hope to see you soon.
All right, let's bring him on. Dr. David Ullery to the program. David, how you doing?
Hello. Good evening, Dustin and Allie. I am well. How are you guys?
Don't have a headache this week. I got sleep. Doing all right.
Hanging in there. We're hanging in there.
Can't complain about any of that.
How are you doing, David?
Yeah, how do you feel, David?
I feel great. It is a beautiful Wednesday evening. For the first time, I think all winter, walked outside this morning on my way to work, and it felt warm outside. It wasn't 30 degrees. It wasn't 40 degrees. It was close to 60, and it felt like North Carolina and living in the South again. And I was happy for that.
It's been a cold winter for us, and obviously I'm not complaining because we've had it much better than the Ohioans and Dustin. Even when you were in Boise, we certainly had it better here. But it's cold for this area, I would say. this winter. All right, David, let's get into it. So as we know, the NFL scouting combine in Indianapolis, a lot goes into that. We know when you think of the scouting combine, I think you think running the 40, and you probably imagine some of the interviews that are going on behind the scenes, but also a lot of medical evaluation is coming from the NFL scouting combine. So what goes into that? Like, what are they looking for? What are they looking at? What does that process potentially look like? And I know you're not there. You haven't been in, you haven't been there probably. I don't think you have, evaluating any of these players, but what could that potentially look like?
Yeah. I think it's a great question and a great kind of topic to look into. I've never been there, as you alluded to, but I'm at least familiar with the things that they're looking for and kind of the examinations that they're doing. So what all kind of sparked this for me is earlier in the week, I was listening to a podcast from the podcast for Ohio State, and they brought up Cade Stover, and they said they're really curious about what his draft stock will look like and how his history of non-serious but lingering injuries would impact him, especially as they examine him in the combine. He had a number of injuries throughout his career that maybe a couple plays off here or there, had to leave a game, especially 2 years ago against Georgia. But either way, he came back and kept playing. He never had to have any serious surgery or any significant time off. And the discussion was, is that more of a problem because he's had multiple injuries that he's played through that have ultimately led to maybe more of a chronic problem. Whereas someone like Jameson Williams tore his ACL in his final year of college, but was drafted while going through rehab by the Lions, and then in his second year this year had a little bit of a breakout year, and they're expecting even more things from him next year. And that was sort of a one-off injury where they knew what the injury was, they did the surgery, he did the appropriate rehab, and he's back playing. And so that I thought that was an interesting conversation and way to look at it, and kind of I don't know, made me do a little bit of a deeper dive into it. And so there's a couple of different articles, again, kind of like everything with the NFL when it comes to injuries and surgery. There isn't a ton out there. It's shrouded in mystery a little bit. But actually, the head team doctor for the Panthers did an interview on a podcast in 2019. And he goes to the combine every year. He participates in the examinations, and he kind of revealed not some secrets, but just more information about it. And I think one of the more interesting things was the combine was actually started by physicians. In the 1970s, New York Jets physicians began having players travel to them for evaluations before the draft. Mm-hmm. And they kind of, the coaches and the evaluation staff from a talent standpoint kind of jumped on the bandwagon and said, hey, if these players are going to be here, let's take a look at how they can run and throw the ball. And so truly the combine in its infancy was more of a medical evaluation at its core. And so, a lot of what the articles I'm reading are, and of course it's biased because these are physicians, but even some of the GMs that they interview and some of the coaches that they talk to believe that the core of the combine is still a medical evaluation, and that is the probably the most important information they get. Because I mean, they have game tape, they have film tape on these guys from college. They know what they can do and perform. Certainly, it's a little bit more controlled environment when you're running a 40 or doing a shuttle drill or doing the 225-pound bench press. But at the end of the day, this is the only opportunity teams have to medically evaluate any of these players who are invited. And they take it very seriously. And so, just to kind of break down what the examination looks like, the first day there for the players is 7, 8, 9, 10-hour day spent at a hospital or kind of in the guts of Lucas Oil Stadium where they're getting evaluated. They have two different teams of doctors evaluate them. They have the internal medicine doctors and the orthopedic surgeons. So basically what it breaks down to is every player goes into an exam room, and there are doctors or representatives from 6 different teams in that room. And they look at this patient's record. They look at their entire chart. They look at their history. I mean, from the time that they were children until now. One kind of funny example about that was from the draft 2 years ago with Brock Purdy. They said that they brought up an injury from when he was 16 years old, almost 6 years prior to this. And he said that they were asking him about his throwing hand that had to have cactus needles surgically removed from it because he was out playing in the desert and fell into a cactus. And so he had a bunch of needles shoved into his hand. Some of them had to be removed surgically. And they brought it up because they want to know everything. Like, you cannot hide from these guys. And so, you think your annual physical with your physician is intense. Like, just imagine this. literally have 6 different physicians who know everything about your medical history, talking about you, whispering about you, saying like, oh, look what this happened in 2012. I wonder if that's going to affect them or not. And then they question you about it. So, I mean, I think for some players, this is probably the most stressful event that they go through. A lot of them, whether they had injuries or not, because I mean, there's also been examples of where players have an undiagnosed condition that gets brought up. Another example in this article from The Athletic was regarding Montez Sweat. In 2019, he underwent a number of medical examinations at the combine, and it revealed a previously undiagnosed heart condition. And so that evaluation actually had a number of teams remove him from their draft board altogether. Now, ultimately, he was selected in the first round by Washington that year, but it has a significant impact on these players and their potential draft stock. And I mean, there's certainly, I don't know, some people may see some controversy around it just because HIPAA violations and whatnot. But I think obviously these players go into it knowing this is going to happen, and they have to sign, I'm sure, a waiver to say, hey, your medical information is being released to all of these teams, but that's the price you have to pay for wanting to get paid multi-millions of dollars and be able to play in the NFL. So, I mean, imagine for most of these guys, it's a worthy trade just for the opportunity to play in the NFL. But it's a very interesting process. And I mean, the doc from the Panthers, another thing that he talked about was just the amount of examinations that happened. So essentially, it's about 350 players. I don't know the exact number that are there this year. But I mean, like I said, they not only undergo all the orthopedic evaluations as we would anticipate, just because we know football is a violent sport that causes muscle and bone and joint injuries, but they also they get EKGs, they get blood work, they get echoes of their heart, they get stress tests if they find that it's needed. They have all of these things done that normally you're like, you don't need this for a sports physical. This isn't just any sports physical. And so one of the interesting things is in this year, I think it was 2019, there were over 1,000 MRIs performed on that day for these players. They will image anything and everything. It doesn't matter. If you had a surgery when you were 10 years old, they're getting x-rays, they may get an MRI. And so all these players are getting at least 2 or 3 MRIs over the course of this time. And so, this is kind of off to a different tangent, but I was thinking, like, why is it always in Indy? Why is it in other cities? But I think part of it is just the infrastructure they have. I know they have 2 major level 1 trauma centers, and they have their industry is pretty big, centered on healthcare, much like some other cities in the Midwest. And so I think it's just it's so ingrained in their community at this point that it just doesn't make sense to do it anywhere else.
Yeah. So go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah. Question, David. So there's been a lot made, and it's been more prevalent the last couple of years. To your point, they're kind of lifting the hood, and I can see both sides of it. I'm an owner, I'm a GM, I'm a coaching staff, and I'm investing a lot of money and high draft picks into a hit or a miss player, right? There's a lot of, it's a gamble too, right? At the end of the day, you think what he did in college is going to transcend over into the NFL. But I think, and I want your thought on this, we're starting to see more and more of these players saying, nope, I'm not going to take the test. Nope, I'm not going to go to the combine. I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to wait till my workout at my college, on my pro day. Do you think we're going to see more of a trend of that? Because that seems to be, that's becoming more prevalent than it has in the past, because now you're seeing these players that are like, you know what? I don't want to be criticized on my 40 and all that at the combine. You just come to pro day out at USC or wherever, and you can clock me then.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, it's funny you bring that up because I literally just saw a tweet talking about how Michael Hall is not participating in any events this week at the combine, and he said, "Come watch me at my pro day at Ohio State on March 20th." And so maybe I don't know, like if a player doesn't go through all the testing at the combine, I guess I don't know if they're required to at another date. Like I said, some of these articles, they talk about how this is the only time that a team gets to evaluate these players from a health and medical standpoint. And it's very objective and it's very thorough. I mean, like I said, there's 6 doctors in the room evaluating each of these players. And if one doctor isn't satisfied with the examination and findings, they'll go examine them. And then what they do is all the doctors compile their report and they present a unified report to all of the owners the next day or later that day, or I guess it's probably actually a couple of weeks. It's just prior to the draft. And so it tends to be very objective. It tends to be very thorough. But either way, like it does, potentially jeopardize or put at risk draft stock. And so I think that's something I'll need to look into a little bit more because I didn't see anything in these articles regarding players who opt out of the combine. Now, obviously, there's plenty of players who don't go to the combine who end up with some sort of eligibility or either get undrafted or late drafts and they didn't participate
Right.
and they end up having a fruitful NFL career. But I think that just like in a trade situation, players still have to undergo a physical with their onboarding team before they can sign their contract and actually be a member on that team. So the combine isn't the end of the road in terms of these medical investigations. And I'm sure that as players begin signing their rookie contracts and getting into that, they have more evaluations done, or if there's lingering questions or concerns, or especially if they didn't go to the combine, it's probably an opportunity for a team at that point to be like, hey, we need to do a couple more tests and look into your history before we can say for sure that you can have this contract. I don't know all the details of that, and I think that that's an interesting question. I'd love to learn more about it, and I'll see if I can find anything else. But we may see more and more of that for sure.
Yeah. So, Dustin, I'm going to mute you. So just to talk about that just a little bit. Oh my God, the cat just came out of the closet. I didn't know he was in here. Just to talk about that, how many times do we sit and we're watching the draft and you're like, oh my God, this person's falling. Why? Like they had a great pro day or they had a great combine rather. They have great college film. Why on earth are they falling? If it's not like a Laramie Tunsil situation or something like that. So I think it's fans forget, myself included, that the combine it's more of a medical evaluation than it is anything. And I truly didn't even consider that was the core of the combine. You think it's just to get all the guys in the same room. It's more of a networking thing for NFL personnel to do deals and talk off-season acquisitions, things like that. But no, it really is to evaluate a lot of these guys in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely is. And I agree. I've been a surgeon for 3 years now and in medicine for the past 8 years, starting, or I guess 12 years when you go back to being in medical school. And I never really looked at it that way either. And I've been a fan of the NFL through all that time too. And obviously we know injuries play a big role and lingering issues or problems can affect draft stock, but I think this sheds a new light on it for me in understanding exactly all that goes into it. There's Jiffy, there's Griffin, the big guy. And
what do you have to say?
And just getting a better appreciation for it. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think that when we start to see guys who start to kind of plummet in draft stock, I think knee-jerk reaction is like personal issues, interpersonal issues. Like, did they say something? Did they tweet something? Did they get in a fight? This or that? But I definitely think medical concerns also are contributing to that because, like I said, these physicians will kind of tally the results, combine them into one report, which is essentially your NFL medical report card or your draft day report card, and give it to the teams. And I don't think that is public information. And so while every NFL team knows it and it affects their draft boards, we don't know it. And so when we see someone drop from top 5 to out of the first round into day 2, that very well could be a reason why. I mean, just another example, in 2013, defensive tackle star Lotu Lele for the Panthers was not allowed to participate in workouts due to concern over what they called a low left ventricular ejection fraction, which is how much blood is ejected by the heart with each beat. That was found during an examination like this. And so he was cleared and it was temporary, so he was able to return to play. But I mean, that's just another example of where these screening tests are so thorough and so, I guess, definite that it can dramatically impact these players' ability to play. But it's all in the name of safety, truthfully.
Dustin's out of here. One in-house, one internal is Mo Hurst. I mean, out of Michigan, he was probably slated to be a top 15 pick, has a heart condition, and then falls. Now, because of that and some other situations, didn't quite get the look in the NFL that he probably deserved, and it was put on display this year. He had a great year. Yeah. Hopefully the Browns can retain him, but something like that and what it can do for this person's NFL career. Dustin, how you doing? You back?
I'm back. We're just trying to
Welcome
get the volume.
back. That's okay. No, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, and I guess one more thing to kind of go off of, especially Dustin's questions earlier regarding our players kind of avoiding the combine or deciding to opt out because of these examinations. these players, you can't hide. You cannot hide injuries, but you also really can't game the system. One of the things that Dr. Connor from Ortho Carolina and for the Panthers talked about is if players are not completely forthright about their medical history and if they try to downplay any potential issues. And I mean, when it comes to like getting images in MRI, what happens when the MRI comes back worse than what the player reported or anticipated? A lot of people say, oh, that player was just saying, no, it's not that bad because he wants to get drafted.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes these players are just such physical specimens and athletes and are so well conditioned that they don't know that it's as bad as it actually is. I mean, like we talked about the ACLs a couple weeks ago, 10 years after an ACL reconstruction and a perfect surgery, there's evidence of arthritis on an x-ray, even if it was a perfect surgery. And so a lot of times these NFL players are just so well trained, so well conditioned, and have such good nutrition that they don't actually feel or experience the symptoms as badly as maybe the common person does. And so it isn't a matter of these guys trying to game the system. It's just it's not as bad as maybe perceived. So again, that can be another downside. You get an MRI and someone, and it shows that they have a bunch of cartilage damage that they don't necessarily feel. People are going to think twice about that, especially if it's like a running back or someone who's a more high energy, high impact player that's going to get pain and swelling soon down the road because of some arthritis in their knee versus a different position that maybe isn't as high impact, whether it's a quarterback or a lineman or something. And so it's a very, very interesting concept. And, I love that I was able to look into this more in preparation for this because it's a cool way to, I guess, unite two things that I love in football and medicine.
Yeah, definitely. David, this is great. Thank you for making us smarter, as you always do. We appreciate you. Jiffy, say bye to your dad. All right, David, thanks for tuning in. Go Browns.
Go Browns. Have a good night.
Go Browns. That is Dr. David Ullery, and that was brought to you by Lorello Vineyards. Just want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Circle K.
Browns fans, get ready for a sizzling sensation that's about to heat up your taste buds. Circle K is bringing you a hot deal this football season. Introducing Circle K's Hot Chicken Wings. And the best part, the price is as hot as the wings themselves. Pick up 6 wings for just $5.99 at your local Circle K today. So what are you waiting for? Gather your friends, your family, and anyone else who craves the ultimate wing experience. Circle K, where every deal is hotter than ever before. Here we go, Brownies. Only at Circle K.
Just another quick shout out before we go ahead and wrap up. We want to tell you about our friends over at Stadium Mustard. Guys, if you don't have Stadium Mustard in your kitchen this season, you're doing it wrong. The iconic brand, the iconic taste is beloved from ballparks to backyards and everywhere in between. Stadium Mustard is a smooth brown mustard rich in both taste and tradition. And by the way, it is loved by millions, so be sure to head on over to stadiummustard.com to shop now. Dustin, you're having a party over there, aren't you?
I was just say it's that time of night where it flips over to, well, you used to go out, Allie. Nothing gets started till 9 or 10 o'clock. That's how it is. Like that's when the bar scene starts. So it's starting to turn over, and people are starting to come in, which isn't a bad thing, right? That's what you're supposed to do. Is you're supposed to. He's like, you at the bar, Johnny? Yes, I'm at the Barley House on West 6th in downtown Cleveland. So, Allie, are we ready to do our quick and dirty snake draft with the defense?
Let's do it. So last week we did a snake draft for to build the perfect coaching staff. And you had the first overall pick, so I'll take the first pick here. So that means you have the next 2 picks. We're not going to draft the entire defense. We're just going to do a couple key positions. We're going to do 2 defensive ends, 1 defensive tackle, 2 linebackers, 2 corners, 1 safety. Just to keep it consistent here. So with my first pick, give me Myles Garrett.
Okay, so I have the next 2, correct?
You have the next 2 picks here. Yep.
And I need 2 defensive ends, correct? Because we're
doing 2 defensive ends, 2 defensive ends, 1 defensive tackle, 2 linebackers, 2 corners, 1 safety.
Give me Nick Bosa and Aaron Donald.
Okay. All right, Nick Bosa. I'm going to write these down for everybody to vote on once we do this. Aaron Donald. Good pick. Okay, so I need, let's see. I'm going to take Micah Parsons. Give me Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons. And then I will take, for a corner, give me Sauce Gardner.
Okay. All right.
So you need a defensive end, 2 linebackers, 2 corners, and a safety.
Okay. Why don't you give me, for corners, you already took Sauce.
I took Sauce.
We're doing two
2 corners.
2 corners. Okay. Give me Darius Williams and Jalen Johnson
Okay. All right, Darius
for cornerbacks.
Williams. All right. Jalen Johnson. Okay. Your draft strategy is unique. Because you didn't have to take 2 corners. I've already got one. So I've already got a corner. That's why I'm not going to take a defensive tackle right now, because you already have one. I mean,
No,
I don't have to use the pick right now. So
I have defensive
I
end.
will. You do. You have 1 defensive end. So I'm going to take 2 linebackers then to get my cream of the crop here. Give me Roquan Smith and give me Fred Warner.
Okay, so you're sorry. I have a defensive end and defensive tackle, or I have.
You have a defensive end and a defensive tackle. You need
Okay.
a defensive end, 2 linebackers, and a safety.
Okay, give me. I need a defensive end still, right?
You need a defensive end.
Give me Chris Jones.
Chris Jones is a defensive tackle.
Oh, sorry. Let's see. Let me go. I need a safety. We're doing 1 safety.
You need a defensive end, 2 linebackers, and a safety.
All right. Give me.
Are you?
I wrote these down. I'm trying to play. Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out who I want here. Okay, so.
Okay.
Safeties. Which safety did you take?
I did not take a safety yet.
Okay, I'm gonna take. And we're taking 1 or 2 safeties.
You're taking 1 safety. You need a defensive end, 2 linebackers, and 1 safety.
Kyle Hamilton of the Baltimore Ravens.
All right. Kyle Hamilton. And you have 1 more pick here.
Let's see. Say that one more time.
You have 1 more pick here.
And who do I need? Sorry, I'm trying to keep
You need
track.
a defensive end and 2 linebackers.
All right. And it's my turn. I have to pick 1 player now, though, right?
You have to pick a player, yes.
Okay. Did you take Demarius Davis, linebacker?
No, I did not. You can take Demario Davis. He is
Demario
available
Davis.
too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Demario Davis. Okay. So I am going to take Chris Jones as my defensive tackle, and that leaves me, I have to pick a corner and I have to pick a safety. So I will go ahead, and this pains me to do, by the way, obviously knowing what he did, but I will take Minka Fitzpatrick as my safety. So, all right, you are up. Your last 2 picks. You need a defensive end and a linebacker.
Okay. Give me Bobby Wagner.
Okay. All right. And your defensive end is?
Which ones? Who are taken? Myles Garrett.
So right now I have Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons, and you currently have Nick Bosa.
I need a top. Who do I want? Because I want to win. Who do I want? I am really torn. I don't know who to take.
Just whoever you want.
I'm gonna go. You took Myles Garrett. Keep Mike Parsons off the board. Actually, give me Max Crosby.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay, so that leaves me with 1 corner, and I'm going to take Pat Surtain here. Okay, so that was something. Let's go ahead and have everybody vote in the comments. Allie's team is Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, Chris Jones, Roquan Smith, Fred Warner, Sauce Gardner, Pat Surtain, and Minka Fitzpatrick. Dustin's team, Nick Bosa, Max Crosby, Aaron Donald, Demario Davis, Bobby Wagner, Darius Williams, Jalen Johnson, and Kyle Hamilton. Drop your comments who you think has the better team here, and we'll have a little bit of fun with it.
I think you have the better team. I mean, mine's decent, but I think yours is better.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the compliment.
I was like, you took some good players. So I was trying to
Hey, it's draft strategy, Dustin. It is all about the draft strategy.
I know,
guys, whether it is sophisticated suburban living, luxury downtown digs, or senior housing, K&D, the largest property management company in Northeast Ohio, has a perfect home for everyone. K&D is your one-stop shop one-stop shop for housing in the region with apartments and amenities for everyone, including residential, commercial, retail, and also corporate housing. Be sure to find your dream home at K&D. Visit knd.com to get started. That is the letter K, the word and, the letter D.com. And Dustin, last but not least, we've got a big event coming up here in just a few weeks. We are headed to the Caribbean. So here's a quick word from our friends over at Seaside Events.
Hey, Browns fans, pack your bags for the ultimate dog pound at sea party on the amazing Independence of the Seas in March of 2024 as we embark on a 5-day all-inclusive Caribbean cruise. Spend time with your favorite Browns alumni like Josh Cribbs, Eric Metcalf, Webster Slaughter, and many more. Presented by Seaside Events. Cabins are selling fast, so book yours now. Visit BrownsFanCruise.com or call 216-284-6472 today.
All right, Dustin, what else you got? Any closing thoughts as we wrap up on a beautiful Wednesday
Allie,
evening?
We are the Here We Go Brownie show, but I know
Yeah.
you're a big basketball fan, and you are one to catch a Cavs game when you can. Allie, did you see the shot that was heard around the world last night?
I did. That was awesome. I didn't see it live. I did not stay up to see it. But yeah, really, really cool to wake up to. We both liked it. He thought it was cool too.
I will tell you this. Second longest buzzer beater in the NBA history. I just thought that was interesting. 97 feet. It was like an astronomical amount. And to give people an update right now, with about a minute left, your Cavaliers are up by 3 on the road to the Chicago Bulls. So speaking of the Cavaliers, they're up by 3. I gotta tell you, living in this town, being able to go to the Cavs games, you really feel how much of a sports town this really is, and how people's moods swings and change. But I gotta tell you, first thing this morning when I got into the office, everybody's like, "Oh, the buzz was all about the Cavs, right? It was Cavs, because that was a shot." And what was interesting, I don't know if you saw, but Martin Emerson and Anthony Walker had front row seats. The Browns players had front row seats, and they were on their phone filming that as that happened, and they just went crazy. They're like, here's a couple Browns guys on a Tuesday night, you get to see a great game. So that went viral too. It's a sports town, even the Browns guys show up to these games. And as you know, Myles Garrett is a minority owner in the Cleveland Cavaliers. So he's even put time, money, and energy into being an owner, which is kind of cool that he's a minority owner with the Cavaliers. I think it's really awesome.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, that was awesome to see this morning. My dad texted me, and I think he texted me, it was kind of late. He said, he texted me last night, and he said, "Stop what you're doing and watch the last 3 minutes of the Cavs game. Unbelievable." So I did that.
Yeah, he was on fire. Max was on fire.
Yeah,
so,
really cool.
It's great to watch these games. So.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. It was a lot of fun tonight with Thom Darden on. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, Browns fans, go Browns.